Alright guys, so hopefully we have overcome the graphics challenge. You've made some cool things, but now you're ready to move into more text-based coding. Normally what I start is, the print statements, then we move into math, then we move into some graphics just to make things cool and neat and play around with it and get really motivated. Now we're going to dial it back towards just text-based graphics. But something to keep in mind is any variables that you use within this context, or really anything that you learn, can be applied back to graphics. So we're going to be having assignments or tasks or goals where we're going to actually create and build, like a new thing, a new concept that we learn. We're going to take it and put it into our graphics unit that we've previously learned, not only to keep our skills sharp, but also to reinforce the fact that every single thing that you learn is interchangeable. And that's the beauty of coding, is that if you can code the concept or piece it together from any concepts or any other things that you learn, it should all interconnect perfectly. Everything is compatible with everything else because we are writing the code or the language that causes those things to happen. And I think that's a real big thing in programming, that once you start learning that, every new task that you learn opens up new capabilities with every previous thing that you've also learned. So let's just dive into this. We're going to learn about variables next. Now, most likely in math class, you have learned something like x equals 5, and then if I were to ask you to print x plus 1, you would hopefully be able to make that connection that every time Python sees an x, it's going to think of 5. So it's going to be 5 plus 1. So let's try running this and see what we get. Spoiler alert, it's going to work exactly the way that you want. So if I go into my Python files, exercise 4.1. Alright, save, and it runs, and we just got 6 out of it. Alright, so we can change this number if we want, x plus 6, so 5 plus 6 should give us 11. So the basic idea is we're able to carry or store information up at the top, and then we're able to build from there. What we can also do is not only just x plus 5, I could add another variable, y equals 9, so I could print x plus y. You know what, let's make it x times y. Any mathematical operation will work, because Python is just going to remember that x times y is basically 5 times 9. It's the x being 5 and the y equals 9. Also, nice little thing to point out, you may notice I did spacing for y equals 9, no spacing for x equals 5. You can put in spaces as much as you want. It might look a little weird. For me, in general, I try to space things out to make them look pretty. I didn't do that here, but this just looks a lot nicer than if everything is like compacted and condensed together. So another thing that we can do is I can say first name equals Brian. And then I could print hello plus first name. So now I can actually have the word hello show up plus the variable first name. So we run this, and I get hello Brian. Ooh, there's a little issue here. There's no space between there. I would really like to have a space there. So I have some options. First thing, I could put a space right here, and I could run it. I would get hello space Brian. What I could also do if I don't like that, hello plus space plus first name. So the word hello plus a space plus the variable first name. And the only thing that we really need to keep in mind is we're not dumping quotations around our variable names. That's really the only difference for calling or bringing forward the name of the variable. So let's try running this again. Same thing works. Okay. And what the utility of this is, we can change the person's name to Bob and run it. And then it says, hello, Bob. So you could imagine if I had 20 or 30 variables up here, even just 3 or 4, all I have to do is change things at the top, and then nothing at the bottom ever needs to be changed from there. And we can do some pretty neat stuff with that. For today, we're just going to be looking at what variables are, which we've kind of seen already. There's ones that are equal to text, and then there are also ones that are equal to age, if you want to put those in. Just for now, realize that we're not able to connect anything that's a number that's not in quotes. We're going to talk about that later, but if I were to run this, I'm going to try to say hello space 25. I know that doesn't make sense. We're going to get an error. That's okay. Don't worry about this error. We're not going to worry about it just yet. Let me just move that so you can see it. We're not going to worry about that just yet. For now, the only thing that I really care about is just making variables work in a nice, fun way. All right. Again, we're beginning. We're going to learn about different types of data, all these different rules, all these different concepts. All that different stuff will come forward at some point. All right. So, what's interesting also is I have first name equals Bob. What if I set first name equals Stephen? And now I were to run it, I'm going to get just hello Stephen. So one thing that we also want to keep in mind is that variables will replace themselves if we put that in. Later on in this course, we're going to actually take advantage of that. We're going to be using variable replacements or things like that, and we're going to have an initial value, but then we're going to change the value as time goes on in case we want to do something or have things react in certain ways, or just in general have our code just update a variable name later on in here. All right. So what I'm going to show you really quick is a few utilities of this, just so we can see like how something works, and then we'll keep adding some features from there. All right. So for example, let's say that I am a student in a high school. So I have my 4-quarter averages in my final. So Q1 underscore AVG. All right. Notice how I'm using underscores to name my variables. Let me get into a couple rules really quick so we can just quickly understand how that works. So variables, variables, variable rules. All right, they have to start with an underscore or a letter. There we go. And then afterwards, they can include underscore, letter, or number. And they are case sensitive. So if you make something with a capital letter somewhere randomly, you have to make sure that you carry it out throughout the entire code. For this course, for this boot camp that we're doing, all these different videos, and especially for my courses that I teach, you don't have to worry so much about like perfecting this or making a system. My recommendation is just to choose one rule, one system, and always go with that. So for example, see how I have Q1 average here? I have no capitalizations, or maybe I want to be fancy and always make the first letter capitalized because I'm going to try to treat it like a proper noun or something like that. I'm going to keep it all lowercase. 99% of the time that I write things, I want things to be in lowercase just because it's a simple rule, because it's less things that I have to press on the keyboard and less things that I have to worry about. You know, my mind is going to be all over the place. Sometimes you'll be balancing tons of variables and ideas and concepts and all these things. The last thing you need to have is errors popping up because you accidentally put in a capitalization or lowercase or something like that. And I use underscores. I try to use them sparingly unless it's like some sort of separation process or something that like I need to separate an idea. Again, you don't have to perfect it, but try to find a system that works for you and just stick to it. All right. Anyway, that was a long rant, but we now understand the rules of variables. So let's get back to this. I want to make a code or a system or a program at least that figures out my average for the academic year. And we're going to do really simple where it's your quarter 1 average, quarter 2 average, quarter 3 average, quarter 4 average, and your final exam. Each one counts as 1/5 of your grade. So if we add them all up and divide by 5, we're following that rule of finding the average. Again, I may be simplifying whatever your averaging system uses, but we're just trying to learn for some basic concepts on here. So let's say quarter 1 average, I get an 87 because I'm an awesome student. All right, quarter 2 average, I can't put my phone down, so I now have a 53 average. Quarter 3 average, well, let's say that I've picked everything up and I'm back up to an 86. And my quarter 4 average, let's say I ended that on a real strong term, so I'm at a 95. And then final exam, let's say that I really studied, really put in the work, and I got a 98 on it. So I have my 5 different grades on here. Now what's cool about variables is you can set them equal to other variables. So what I'm going to say is, let's say course average equals, I'm going to start a parentheses because remember with that order of operations, I got to make sure that I do the division last. Q1 average plus Q2 average plus Q3 average plus Q4 average plus final exam, all divided by 5. So now I've not only made these 5 variables, but what I've also done is I've made a 6th variable that's equal to things or concepts from other variables up here. All right, and now I can print course average. Now we can't do that plus thing, so I'm just going to do a print on the next line, course underscore average, like that. So now if I run this code, all right, course average 83.8, not so bad. Even though I had a rough quarter too, everything else kind of came through in the end, and I got a pretty good grade towards the end. Now, what's cool about this is I've built a tool. So now I can use these number signs to just make kind of like a line or a divider, and now all I have to do is change these grades, and then this code takes care of everything else for me. So no more having to worry about doing all the calculations, everything like that. I have reduced the amount of repetitive calculations that I need to do for each of my courses, where I can just go in here and change my grades. All right, let's say I didn't do too hot in this course, but I pulled a quarter 3 really strong. Doesn't matter what my grades are. If I run it, now it gives me my next average. We can even go one step further. Course underscore name. Oops, I didn't want to do that. There we go. Course name equals biology. And then I'm going to put in course name plus and then a space average. So now, if I even want to go further with it, if I run this, biology average 76. Now I go in and I change this again to my math course. All right, I'm a stronger math student, so I'm going to put in some stronger grades on here. Oh, didn't get an 856. That would be nice. All right, and we end with an 85. Now if I run it, math average 72. So notice how these ideas or these concepts can be established up at the top. I type in the details, and then the code takes care of all of this extra stuff. Everything's taken care of. We don't have to worry about anything. You know, it's not kind of neat. And that's, again, we're diving into some of the essences or the main goals or basically like accomplishments of programming. You never have to do the mental calculation or the mathematics or the thought process involving setting up your average. Once you set it up once, it takes care of everything for you. And you could get into some really, really cool mathematical things on this. And we're going to be approaching that later on in this course. You're going to be making a tool where up at the top, you're going to be typing in things like how much the total bill costs and how many people attended, like going out to dinner together. And your program is going to split the bill. It's going to recommend the tip amount. It's going to do all these different things and bring it all together. And then later in the course, we don't even have to go into our code to change the data. We're going to actually ask the person and say, you know what? I can't possibly write all the code that solves your problem. So if you just run this program, it's going to ask you 5 or 6 simple questions at the top, and then it's going to do all the work for you. Kind of like if you ever do your taxes online, that's what you do. You type in all the data, and then it gives you back all the details that are relevant or important. It takes care of all the complicated aspects of it. But anyway, I've gone way too far in what we're going to be learning in this course. Right now, all that we care about is that we can just build variables based off of other variables, and we can do a lot of other neat things like that. All right, so we're going to wipe this clean. We're going to take a look at just another example of this, because I'm going to make something and then I'm going to give you your assignment that I want you to try to complete for yourself. And this is just to prove that you understand how this variable stuff works, and we're going to keep solidifying our knowledge as the course moves forward. So what I'm going to do, first name equals Brian, last name equals Fadouk, that's me. All right, job equals teacher, I'm going to actually lowercase that, and location equals Ellenville. All right, so it's kind of like, have you ever seen a baseball card? You see that they have like their stats on there that lists all their data or their information, and then all the cards are built with the same template. So we're just going to do a quick statement, print, no quotes, first name plus a space because we want another variable to show up, last name plus, and then we're going to add some text, is a plus job plus in plus location. Oop, I didn't want to put quotes on there, because if I did that, only the word location would show up. Now notice how I went to the end of the screen. Anywhere after a plus sign, you can press enter, and this will still work as a single print line. Notice how it's like nudged in. I wouldn't say abuse this habit as much as you can, but if it helps you, you can always do that, or we can just kind of shift this over a little bit, and that should also work fine as well. But, you know, just kind of like a rule of thumb, you can press enter after any plus sign, and that will let you kind of move it to the next line in case you want to kind of squeeze everything into one screen. It's not going to look perfect, it's going to look a little weird and choppy, but again, that's your choice to make. I'm not trying to live your life for you. All right, so anyway, let's run this program. Okay, Brian Fadouk is a teacher in Ellenville. Now, again, with my code, I did some degree of work at the bottom of this line that I never have to change, but up here we can change our details. John, let's say Smith, is a let me lowercase that, firefighter in, let's say, another town near me, Middletown. Now, if I run this, John Smith is a firefighter in Middletown. So see how the statement or the stat card about the person changes as we update the things up here. This is kind of like the details of the baseball player that goes into the like the card or the collectible card that the baseball player would appear on. All right. Again, this is not something that we have to be like, super wowed or impressed by. This is not by no means trying to be some sort of crazy, amazing programming aspect. But what I want you to do now is I want you to make your own code. It can be very similar to this, where you ask for, let's say, a first name, a last name, let's go with a favorite color, and a favorite animal. And then what I want you to do is return a statement with all four of those facts in a coherent sentence, or you can get fancy and make it a paragraph about them. All right. You can do some pretty neat things with this. All I'm asking for is something very basic and simple. Remember the rules that we have to follow with our variables. All right. They can begin with an underscore or a letter as the beginning character. All right. Then anytime after that, it can be a number, letter, or an underscore mark. Some people will try to do something like favorite space animal equals dog. Now what happens is, if we run this, Python is going to look at the word favorite and be like, ooh, that's a variable. Okay, we're doing something with the variable favorite. I don't know what we're doing yet. Then it hits a space, and then it hits animal. It's like, wait, there's another variable happening? This is weird. I don't like that. So if we try running it, we'll actually see it yell at us. Invalid syntax, and it's blinking on this variable right here. All right, so if I try running it again, let's see. Yeah, see how it highlighted this and said invalid syntax? if you instead make it a single smushed together word, everything runs fine. Now, that word dog is not going to show up anywhere in here because all I've done is said, hey, Python, I want you to remember that favorite animal is a dog. It says, okay, got it. I'll remember that in case you ask me for it. And if I actually print favorite animal down here, it's going to give me back that storage space. So I'm still able to, when this program ran, recall information that Python has stored when we ran this program. All right. So that's one thing that people make as a huge mistake. Another thing that people will make as a mistake is forgetting or not being able to make this connection. So instead of actually putting in last name, they might be like, oh, I need to put in my last name. Yeah, no, that's what I need to do because that's what it's asking. Remember, you're building the code that connects the data to it. The last thing that people make as mistakes as a common thing is throwing quotes around it. And watch what happens if we do that. John last name is a firefighter in Middletown. I don't know who Mr. Last Name is, but that looks a little bit weird to me. So you just want to make sure that you remove the quotes for variables and you make sure that you put the quotes on top of everything else. My suggestion would be to do it really, really slow. So print first name, just make first name show up. Then add a space and then last name. Make sure that shows up. Then put the words is a. Then make sure that that works. And then put the job afterwards. And then put the word in. And then put the location on there. Remember, this is your first time learning this like rule or, basically like guidelines for coding. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything to Python's satisfaction. If you try to do every single thing all at once, you'll probably run into an issue. So just make sure that when you're building this, you're taking your time and leave room for improvement, leave room for you to understand what you're doing, and make sure that you just, have some fun with this. Don't feel like you just need to get it done as fast as possible. If you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not trying new things, if you're not playing around with some different or weird items, you're not going to get the results that you really want. Like, for example, I was thinking like, ooh, what if I multiplied first name times 100? Let's try running that. It's probably going to be weird. John, blah, 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 Smith is a firefighter in Middletown. Huh, that's interesting. So I can do this multiplication inside the print statement, and it works just fine. So again, have some fun, try things out. Don't be afraid to, see what you can build with this. All right, so again, your assignment, ask for the first name, last name, favorite color, and favorite animal. Well, not really ask it, but, leave room at the top for that to be filled in. And then give a statement back, a print statement that says, about those 4 facts. You could say, I would like you to meet my friend, first name plus space plus last name. My friend really loves the animal, blank, or loves the color, blank, and their favorite animal is the blank. So what it allows you to do is just kind of build a sentence around them. All right. In 4.2, we're going to be applying variables to graphics. So I'm going to be showing you a few ways. You're going to actually be going back to your Olympic rings program, and you're going to be adding the concepts or the pieces of a variable to that. And then in 4.3, we're going to actually make that data play well. So this is the issue that we had before. We're not going to go into this right now, but we're going to learn about the 3 main types of data that Python's going to handle for this course. 2 of them being mathematically charged, one of them being text-based charged. So that's how we're going to kind of like play around with our data. These are little things to think about. And if you want to play around with a tool that finds like the average, or if you want to get real fancy and play around with a tool that finds like sales tax or how much you should tip, you're actually moving ahead of the course a little bit. And don't be afraid to try things, because again, if you just plow through this course as fast as you can and watch the videos and do the exercises, you're not going to come out as a talented or a capable programmer. You need to take the time to build these skills up and save some room for you to have some fun with it. So with that note, hopefully you can enjoy playing around with variables a little bit. When you feel comfortable and you're ready to move on to the next thing, tune into 4.2 and we'll be playing around and adding some more concepts to our knowledge of variables. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.